Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Back at it with another video, and I want to give you guys the rundown on this incoming Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. Do me a favor, if you're new to my channel, welcome. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the button below so you're alerted as to when we have new content coming out on the channel. Lots of stuff going to be happening over the next few weeks as we prepare for Mercury's retrograde. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means, what we may expect during this transit. I'm going to take you guys through the shadow period as well, and then break down all of the aspects Mercury will be making. It's going to feel a little bit like deja vu, very similar to the tail end of 2021, the beginning of 2022. We're going to see some similar transits, some aspects to Pluto kind of going on. And we're coming into the shadow period in this next week. So I always like to get this video out early. Oh my goodness, I'm a Libra rising, so I'm definitely feeling this. I have a stellium of planets in Capricorn. And just to really kind of get ahead of the curve and try to avoid some of the time issues, I figure why not? Let's do it now. Drop me a hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, how you're feeling with this energy. So to some extent, some of you guys are going to be like, okay, but the retrograde's not to the 29th. No, but the shadow period is actually going to be beginning on the 12th. So giving you guys this heads up now so you can get all of the stuff done that you need to get done that's connected to Mercury in this next week before we even hit the shadow. And for those of you guys who are new to astrology, I'm going to explain what all of this stuff means. All right. So let's go ahead and get into some of the aspects and let's talk about what's going to be taking place. So many people right out the gate want to know the dates. So if you want to write this down just so you're aware of when the retrogrades are going to be taking place and some of the big aspects and the time periods that this is going to be taking place during, I would make a note of this now. So I will take you guys through the transits, but the pre-shadow, so this is shadow meaning these are the degrees that Mercury will retrograde back through. So as soon as Mercury hits 8 degrees, which it will, the very, very early morning of December 12th, we are already going to be in the shadow. So it's going to go all the way up to 24 degrees, stop, turn retrograde back to 8 degrees, go direct, and then it'll take until it gets out of 24 degree range for it to leave the shadow. So believe it or not, even though the Mercury retrograde is around 3 weeks long, we're going to be feeling this one clear until March, okay? But if you're a stickler and you're like, hey, you know, I really want to be aware of the shadow so I can avoid some of the rockiness or sometimes the turbulence that comes up during that period, or if you're making decisions during that period, just know that even though the retrograde hasn't happened, we can still be affected by it, and we need to use a little bit more extra caution. So pre-shadow is going to start December 12th, and that will be at 8 degrees of Capricorn. Pretty important if you have any planets right around there. So I would say anywhere from like 6 to 10 degrees of Capricorn, equally on the other side of the spectrum, from about, 22 to 26 degrees of Capricorn. If you have any placements there, that's where it's going to be turning direct. So, and retrograde actually. So that's going to be really important as well. The actual Mercury retrograde itself will be starting on December 29th, 2022. So later this month, that's when the retrograde will begin. But I'll tell you guys something. This is a period that you really want to get some of this stuff done prior to the retrograde. And I'll explain why, but when it turns retrograde, it'll be in conjunction to Venus, and it's going to be enclosed between Venus and Pluto. So by the time we get to the Mercury retrograde moment, we're going to be like, oh shoot, too late, can't return something, or can't take something back, or it's painful or challenging or kind of sticky when it comes to making a change. All the more reason to get this video out early. So December 29th, we have the retrograde that begins. We go into the beginning of 2023 with a retrograde, and it will be going direct on January 18th, 2023. Hard to believe we're already coming to a new year here pretty soon. So that direct will be when we're out of the retrograde in general, but the post-shadow, so the effects we're waiting for Mercury to kind of wake up and then move forward and past 24 degrees. That post-shadow is not going to be ending until right around February the 7th. So it'll be clear into like mid-February when we're starting to kind of feel the effects wear off. And by the time we get into March, we're kind of in the clear, okay? So let's talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde just in general. I want to talk to you guys also about the sign that it's in as well. So it's going to be in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. So the cardinal energy is initiatory. It wants to start something. So it's also the markers that we see for the season. And here in the Northern Hemisphere, that is the winter solstice that's associated with Capricorn, the darker period, right, of the year. And we're waiting for the light to come back. So it's particularly frosty. It's kind of cold in parts of the United States and everywhere else, actually North America. And Mercury is going to be making its retrograde in this sign. So Capricorn has a traditional association with the 10th house. So this is anything from responsibility to career, reputation, public reputation, authority figures such as bosses, father figures, even grandparents, authority figures, government figures, leaders. This is all kind of Capricorn type thing. People who wear uniforms also. So I think of like police officers or medics, or sometimes even nurses, or even postal workers, anybody who's wearing a uniform. So it can be generals, or it can be somebody who works for a larger kind of company. Now it's in the element of earth, right? So earth is always about what's grounded, practical, solid, visible, real, things that are tangible, like health or money or food. So we're going to see some reworking or reorganizing in terms of these topics globally, because when I talk about this, generally it's more about how it's going to affect the world. Later in this video, I'll get into the 12 signs and I'll kind of take you through the 12 signs of where that retrograde will be taking place. I have to tell you guys, it's going to be very hard to not acknowledge, because it's going to be making such significant, contact with other planets and getting very, very close to Pluto. So all of 2022, we have had Mercury retrogrades for the most part that were taking place in air signs, and they were retrograding back into earth signs. So we started the year kind of having that take place in Capricorn, right? So we had one in Capricorn. That's why I said you're going to feel kind of deja vu. We had one also that was taking place in the spring, and that was going from Gemini retrograding back into Taurus. So we were talking about making financial changes, getting, more so stable. We saw it in the fall where it actually took place in Libra, but it retrograded back into the sign of Virgo, which was also, I think, quite positive, honestly, because, Mercury is associated with the sign of Virgo. Quite a few trines and aspects, both to Uranus, the North Node, but also Pluto in Capricorn. And we kind of finished the year off with this one that's going to be in Capricorn as well. It'll be, like I said, from 8 to 24 degrees. So if you have any planets within the Capricorn sign of 8 to 24 degrees, sun, moon, rising, personal planets as well, this will be a very personal Mercury retrograde for you. And I'll talk about all the signs that it's going to affect also, so stay tuned. Now, Mercury in general rules anything in regards to travel, gadgets, communications, cars, computers, documents. So things like signing on the dotted line for a lease, buying a car, signing a new job proposal, having a business merger, launching things. These are all kind of like mercurial things. So I'm not going to tell people what to do. I'm in the job of telling people when's the best time to do things like relocate, get married, launch businesses, things like that. And I would just say across the board, this is a period where we really want to work with the Mercury retrograde to reorganize something, to restructure something, especially in the sign of Capricorn. But there's always a meaning we're reworking or going back, retrograde to return and work through something. And Mercury is associated with the mind, how we think, how we communicate. So some things that you can do during a Mercury retrograde would be to rework, rethink, renegotiate, reimagine, reorganize, right? Anything in regards to Capricorn type themes. Now it's gonna be different for everybody. That's why you wanna know your natal chart. You wanna know your ascendant sign, and I will take it through the 12 signs and talk to you about specifically which house the retrograde is taking place. The ascendant sign is gonna be the most accurate. You're gonna wanna listen for that along with your sun and your moon sign. You might find that the sun and the moon sign do kind of resonate as well, but it's probably gonna be more so accurate with your rising sign. Let me read you guys the Sabian symbols because I'd like to read those to you both for 8 degrees of Capricorn as well as the 24, where we are going to be seeing the actual retrograde begin. Kind of interesting. One I'm pretty sure I've definitely read before, but the other one I don't think I have read in some time on the channel. So obviously, as always, my trusty Sabian symbol book. If you guys have this, it's page 312. Capricorn 8, birds in the house singing happily. The word is establishment. The theme is jubilation. The symbol speaks to happiness and delight and the result of everything falling into place as planned or as hoped for, and an overall sense of everything being right in the world. The image of birds in the house singing happily suggests an unrestrained outpouring of spiritual fulfillment and joy. Implicit in the symbol is a healthy feeling of self-confidence, accomplishment, as the result of being able to shape outer events according to inner desire and expectation. At its highest, it represents optimism, lightheartedness, and it's positive, and a positive, enthusiastic attitude inspires cooperation. Watch for narcissism or total preoccupation with the self. Today, the accent is on cheerfulness, optimism, entertaining at home could be on your agenda, or you may feel content to just putter around the house and enjoy your own little world in peace. Everything's going your way. The greatest advantage lies in encouraging others by giving them positive feedback and appreciation for their efforts. Guard against being self-centered or falling into a habit of putting your own comfort and pleasure before the needs of others. Stepping stones would be happiness, joy, harmony, self-fulfillment, self-sufficiency, accomplishment, and success. Pretty good Sabian symbol, huh? I mean, I think that we have to take into consideration it's retrograding right through this degree. At an 8, it's got this energy of like Scorpio. So it's more about Capricorn, Saturn, you know, commitment to finding the joy, finding the peace, being able to, I think, get a little bit further with sweetness rather than feeling like we want to kind of lean into kind of the difficult or kind of callous side of that Saturn related sign. But there is a shift, I think, in the way that we're thinking or the way that we're communicating. My takeaway from that is when we look at the themes of like optimism and being lighthearted and trying to stay, you know, positive, it's very much like silver lining, right? We're rethinking and reworking how can we communicate in a more positive way? How can we look at this in a sense of glass is half full? Where can we find the silver lining in the reorganization of some things? Now, perhaps it may actually take until it stations at this degree, closer to the mid-January period, to find this. So some of us might kind of go, oh, this was not my experience right when the Mercury retrograde starts right around the holidays. But it may take really until about the mid-January to kind of feel this. By the same token, you know, this is also going to be going down where we're having the holiday season. We're coming to the tail end of the year. Some people might be actually slowing down, focusing less on business, focusing more on finding the holiday cheer, you know, finding the things that we are thankful for, and being able to feel like we can do more in our own little sphere and find that happiness in the little slice of heaven, maybe with our loved one. So pretty positive, to be honest with you. I'm not mad at that one. Just give it until January to feel the full effects of that, you know? So then page 328 would be the Sabian symbol for 24 degrees. Now, perhaps this is the one, I probably should have started with this one, but in true Mercury retrograde fashion, I did it backwards. This is where we're going to see the retrograde begin. So it'll retrograde at 24 degrees. Very important because when Mercury retrogrades, it'll be in conjunction to Venus, the same degree, 24 degrees. So there is something very important about this degree. And keep in mind, Venus rules the North Node, okay? Venus, love, relationships, harmony, beauty. So we're rethinking Mercury retrograde, our responsibility and timing, Saturn, Capricorn, when it comes to what we love, what we value, okay? So just food for thought. Capricorn 24, a woman entering a convent. The theme is the retreat. The symbol speaks to stirring from within, the fact that the individual needs to change to move themselves forward. The image of a woman entering the convent symbolizes spiritual commitment, search for meaning, a desire for union with the all. It also indicates a turning point in life. On a practical level, this degree can indicate an attempt to gain release from stress, a desire for privacy, isolation, retreat, withdrawal from social activities. At its highest, the symbol represents cosmic insight, devotion, and dedication to spiritual principles. Watch for the negative. This could be psychological escapism or being cowardly. The accent is on withdrawal and solitude. You may be feeling like you need to get away from it all to take some time to think things over or get your life in order. Your greatest advantage lies in learning how to slow down and taking time for yourself. Schedule regular quiet time for rest, meditation, contemplation, and keep the appointment. Guard against being afraid to meet life on its own terms or trying to avoid all conflict and struggle by running for cover at the first sign of trouble. Try not to live your life sitting by the exit door. Watch for withdrawal, seclusion, retreat, escapism, privacy, turning points, dedication, commitment, devotion, faithfulness, and responsibility. For those of you guys who aren't aware, convent is where nuns live. Some people may not know that. Very interesting because 24 degrees being associated with this very strong Piscean energy, hidden spaces, temples, retreat centers, monasteries, being out in nature, seclusion, isolation. These are themes that we see with 24 degrees, but maybe it's about also taking a step back and really reevaluating what we're giving our life to, what we're dedicating ourselves to, what service we're giving. And I think also it's just this realization that's like, wow, something has to change. An attempt to gain release from stress and a desire for privacy in the process of doing that. And how do we seek that isolation and that opportunity to have spiritual or cosmic insights without like totally withdrawing and finding that we're going in the lower octave of that 24 kind of Pisces degrees by just completely falling out and like not being responsive or isolating ourselves or avoiding taking responsibility for something, right? So that's also kind of like the double-edged sword. Two very watery degrees, 24 and 8. And 8 definitely deals with change and transformation. Just kind of reflecting on, as Pluto went through these degrees these last few years, I feel like I really resonated with that 24 degrees of you can take the time consciously to kind of rest and retreat, or you can just realize that there are some situations in your life where you're just kind of, hands off and you're not actually actively participating with making the change. Definitely self-sabotage comes up whenever we're looking at 12 or 24 degrees as well. So you kind of want to watch for that. So like I said, it's going to retrograde at 24, so maybe we're going to feel this. And as it retrogrades back to that 8 degrees, then it's going to be tapping back into the other Sabian symbol, which was much more about finding happiness and finding peace and like reason to celebrate. It reminds me of a quote that I read while Saturn was going through these degrees a couple years ago, and somebody said it to me, and it was like something just kind of clicked. And it was like what the heart grieves over losing, the spirit rejoices. So whenever we're dealing with conjunctions to Pluto, right, there can be this sense of like what we actually have to let go of, which can be scary or painful. It does require a sense of like a lot of emotional clearing and like purging. Obviously, the holidays for a lot of people can be a very difficult time. There can also be a lot of reflecting on relatives we may not be on good terms with, or how life used to be, or people we used to be with in relationship. And it's been a really rocky last couple of years for a lot of people. So I think that just in a mental, emotional sense, this turning retrograde with Venus in conjunction, Pluto nearby, we're definitely going to be feeling like a sense of withdrawing, but make sure you're doing something with that time. Don't just check out, like the nun goes to the convent and gives herself to that practice, that dedication of being able to serve and being selfless. There is some joy in that, but she has to actively kind of do it. She doesn't just sit there, right? She's giving back to the community. She's helping other people. She's educating other people also about that belief system. So do something with the time. And I feel like probably right around the time that Mercury is stationing, we're going to realize that there could have been a situation in our life that kind of fell apart, or it felt like we're grieving or losing or letting something go. But there's a lot to rejoice about, what we've actually released and changed and transformed. In so many ways, this retrograde is so beautiful and it's so poetic, and it's like this very amazing mercurial plutonian send-off that we're having as Pluto is in the final degrees of Capricorn. Like, you literally can't make this stuff up. As we get into March and April of 2023, Pluto is going to go into Aquarius. Granted, it'll be brief. It'll be for only about 2 months, and then it'll retrograde back. But to me, this is that grand send-off that's like, well, what did we learn about death? What did we learn about endings? What did we learn about learning to kind of like let things go? And in true Pluto form, I think what it's really taught me, especially going through an angular house, is that for what you're willing to give up, there's so much more to gain, right? So you guys want to be kind of keeping that in the back of your mind. Take a look at where Capricorn is in your chart. So if you have your chart in front of you, find that house, okay? That's the house where there's going to be a big change and transformation, a reorganization, a rethinking. Obviously, it's going to affect everybody differently, but so important with some of the aspects that it's going to be making. So let me take you guys through some of the most important transits throughout this retrograde in general. And really, it's going to be starting with the 12th. So I know that this is going to be more so next week, but obviously you guys are, kind of prepared. You know that some of this stuff is coming, but this will be the day that the shadow is going to begin. So what does that mean? Depending on where it's retrograding in your life, you want to do some of this stuff early. So if you know that you need to get a car serviced, if you know that you need to sign a lease, if you know that you need to book travel or plan things, like ideally you're doing it before you get to the 12th, because then you're going to start to see some of the sparklers of Mercury's kind of tricks and games. Obviously life happens, right? We can't stop our life because Mercury retrogrades. It happens, 3, sometimes 4 times a year. We feel these retrogrades much more intensely because this is a planet that's closer to the sun. So in its retrograde, it's going to make quite a few aspects, conjunctions to Pluto, conjunctions to Venus. We're going to see a Sun-Mercury cazimi. Eventually it'll go direct and come into exact conjunction with Pluto in the new year. So this is definitely going to be something that we're going to all feel collectively. And like I said, it's that wrap up of the Pluto transit. But if you know that you need to make some of these big life decisions, ideally you're kind of doing it if you can before the shadow kicks in. If not, then life goes on. You read the fine print. And I always recommend clients really take into consideration doing things that are temporary, right? So like if you know, I got to get a car, I got to find something, I got to get around, or, I have to find a place to live, or I have to start a new job. Buying a little time, asking if you can, sign it, after a certain period or starting after a certain period, doing a lease or a rental or something short term until you really know where you want to buy or where you want to be living permanently. When in doubt, try to do something temporary. Try to find a flexible option, because that's what Mercury is about, right? Mercury is about being able to kind of say, well, we can do this or we can do that. And the beauty of the retrograde is that actually, as we get closer to the cazimi point, you're going to see what the whole purpose of this was, like what's actually being unveiled, what's being uncovered. So we start on the 12th as we come into the shadow, and we're not actually going to see too much going on until later in the month. So let me take this a little bit later. In its transit though, Mercury will first begin to start coming into a trine with the North Node. So you're going to be feeling that right around the 15th of December at a 12. Although it might be like harder to see or pinpoint or pin down, it can come in the form of a dream or a hunch or something in terms of like intuition. Mercury, when it's in a positive harmonious aspect with the North Node, remember the North Node is associated with the moon. It can be amazing ways to be able to communicate and share our feelings, share our strategies, Mercury and Capricorn, share our timelines, our plans, our professional goals even. Pretty interesting day to watch Mercury trine the North Node, and also the moon will be in Virgo. So we're going to see a grand Earth trine. So for Mercury being in shadow, it's still a pretty positive day on tap. Now, what you'll see briefly, this will be the 14th going into the 15th, is that Mercury will square Chiron. That's going to bring up some wounds, you know, feeling like somebody at work is being bossy, or that we're kind of really being pressed for being responsible for taking care of our own issues, taking care of ourselves. I mean, we may feel a little bit more sensitive to criticism, and possibly even needing to finally, you know, because this is the final square, since Mercury has been in conjunction earlier this spring with Chiron, I've tended to my wounds. I have learned, you know, new patterns and new habits. Now I'm learning more about responsibility and kind of showing up and like owning our faults sometimes. That's what this can be, because we're going to see several squares happening to Chiron. So a little sensitive the 14th and the 15th with some of those squares. Something else in the background, and this is part of my, you know, my full moon in Gemini video. Guys, there's so much mercurial energy in the sky if you're looking for it right now. As this full moon in Gemini is approaching, we're also seeing that the ruler, right, is getting ready to come into the sign that it'll retrograde. And as Mercury is moving in the skies, it's also going to be coming into an inconjunct with Mars. So Mercury traditionally rules Gemini, and Mars is actually exalted in Capricorn, and they're making an inconjunct. So it's not quite mutual reception, but I could see this as a situation where it's like there's something about what our goals are and our planning in the Capricorn area of our life that is getting roughed up or agitated as a result of Mars going retrograde. And Capricorn has a little bit more say in things because it's at a higher degree. It's in a higher place in the sky. So it's going to be like, you know, I don't care. Go back and rework the essay. Like, go back and renegotiate, or go and read the contract. Like, it's going to send you back to something that you said, signed, learned, or agreed to in the past. So this is still part of the Mars retrograde in Gemini. That's a little uncomfortable angle that we're going to feel there very briefly, the 14th and the 15th. Now Mercury moves forward. It comes out of that funky aspect, and then it's going to start trining Uranus. And this is going to be on the 17th of December, Mercury trine Uranus. So first we have fateful conversations, and we're kind of aligning with faith and values, and we're planning. A couple days later, we hit the 17th, and Mercury, the mind, comes into harmonious aspect with Uranus, which is, I have a solution, you know, or let's change things up, change a schedule, change of way that we're working, the way that we're communicating. Positive business dealings, perhaps, or talking about, you know, financial changes, because Uranus is in a financial sign. So there can be a sense of just quick opportunities to make changes to the way that we're thinking, or how we're organizing or kind of strategizing something in regards to our business. You're going to hear me say that a lot, but Capricorn is associated with business responsibility, more so our public reputation, and just our responsibilities out in the world in general. So much of the beginning of 2022, when we started with Mercury and Venus going retrograde in the new year, was a lot of people going, do I really like what I'm doing for a living, right? Do I really like my boss? Do I like this schedule? Do I keep want to show up like this? And I reminded everybody when these transits were happening, because of the close proximity to Venus, that you had to ask yourself, right? Do you love what you're doing? If you do not, take heed, because 1 year from now, you're going to find yourself on New Year's Eve of 2022 going into 2023 going, I think I still hate my job. I've been telling myself all year that I'm going to make a change, or I'm going to launch my own business, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to go back to school. Some of you guys may feel the deja vu because this is going to be setting up again. So my advice is that while Mercury is in a trine to the North Node and also Uranus in mid-month of December, in spite of the shadow, you might start realizing, like, I got to do something different. I got to make a change. And it can be really positive, and it can help you also communicate and express your values a whole lot easier with other people. Mercury moves forward. It's not going to make too many aspects. It's going to start making aspects when it comes into a sextile with Neptune. And you're probably going to feel, and I want everybody to really pay attention right around the end of the month. The 23rd really through like New Year's is when it's just like fireworks. Mercury starts coming into a sextile on the 23rd with Neptune. Okay, so positive, harmonious kind of Venusian aspects. Mercury, the mind, in a sign that's associated with scheduling and timing and business, aligning with Neptune's creativity, desire, vision, sensitivity, emotion. So it's a really great day for romance. It's a great day for magic. It's a great day for inspiration, or if you're wanting to make, snowmen, or if you're wanting to watch movies or take photos. Like, it's very, very whimsical. But it's also amazing for visualizing something that you're hoping to kind of bring together. So if you're planning to have the family come over and you're going to show a bunch of home movies, right? Because Capricorn's like tradition and Neptune can be screens. Amazing way to be able to celebrate the holidays. I could see some people wanting to take really beautiful family portraits, especially because Venus is there. Or there can be amazing shots of houses and landscapes, and maybe doing, photos where you have like the grandparents and the mothers and the daughters and the granddaughters, where you're seeing that generational aspect of the family. That could be something else that's kind of cool. But it's great for being able to share and also visualize and organize things in a way that just kind of flows. The reason why I think you're really going to feel this on the 23rd is because you also have Venus that's starting to move in as well into the conjunction, and then the moon will hit Venus and also Mercury, and then the last hit will be Pluto, and that's going to be on Christmas Eve. And as I've said in my videos, I think I said it in my horoscopes or my month ahead, Christmas Day, much better day for socializing than Christmas Eve. To each their own when it comes to celebrating the holidays, but if you like to get the family together on Christmas Eve, I'm going to show you why I think this is a little bit of an intense day. You're going to see on the morning and into the afternoon of Christmas Eve, the moon conjuncts Venus, which is nice, right? Just after that new moon in Capricorn. And so you have the new moon, it's conjunct Venus, new intentions, positive, everybody comes together, harmony, love, sweetness with Venus. It comes into conjunction with Mercury, so traveling, communicating, making plans, but that's also going to sextile Neptune. So on the other hand, it can be, hey, there's a weather advisory. Hey, somebody is sick. That's the darker side of some of the Mercury sextile Neptune. So you might find out that plans kind of get hazy, or there can be some issues with communication and clarity. And then later in the day, the moon is going to pass Mercury and get closer and closer to Pluto. So from pretty much like 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, moon is coming into conjunction with Pluto. Some intensity within the home, right? Because the moon is the home, our dwellings, our family, our roots. Moon obviously is not the most comfortable in Capricorn, so there can be some emotional rigidness. That conjunction, I feel like, with Mercury, Pluto, and the moon is just some really intense heated exchanges with like in-laws, or some emotionally intense situations that are going on, amongst ourselves. So just, man, stellium of planets in Capricorn, it's definitely going to be felt. And then later in the evening, the moon is going to shift into Aquarius. We wake up in the morning and the moon's in Aquarius, so it's like much more social, it's more fun, it's immediately sextiling Jupiter. Obviously 4 a.m. is a little early unless you guys have toddlers and they're already kind of in the tree. But yeah, the moon coming into the sextile with Jupiter, I think, is much more positive and harmonious personally. We're going to start seeing Mercury getting ready to station. So Mercury is slowing down. So we're already starting to kind of feel the effects of it. And the moon's going to hang out in Aquarius all day, It won't start really coming into a square with its own nodes until the evening. So moon square the nodes, fateful situations, fateful events. Yes, it's going to be hard for some of us to avoid going and seeing our family, seeing our in-laws, seeing our friends. But the moon in Aquarius is saying family can be friends. It's not limited to just our blood family. It can be our neighbors. It can be our coworkers. There can be parties, but definitely some fateful things going on. And the moon's going to be in a trine to Mars. So if you have a choice between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I would opt for Christmas Day. The only downside is as we get into the evening, the moon is going to start coming into a square with Uranus. So anytime after about 8:39 p.m. Pacific time, things get a little rowdy. There can be some emotional intensity, and yeah, try to stick to maybe until the early afternoon for some of your get-togethers and socializing in general. And then we watch Mercury getting ready to turn retrograde, and this is actually going to be on the 29th. So we'll see more of some of these sextiles between the moon and Neptune also on the 27th. And then we get to the 29th, and here we are, Mercury starts turning retrograde. So here's what I wanted to show you guys. Right around the time that it's stationing, there we go. And the retrograde begins very early morning on the 29th, I should say. It is in conjunction to Venus, so watch. So Mercury starts going retrograde, and it's going to retrograde into conjunction with Venus, right? So Mercury retrograde, communicating, reconnecting, rethinking, reimagining, idealizing, retrograde the past in conjunction to Venus. I think there's a lot of people who are going to sometime between Christmas and New Year's be like, oh, I want to call that person. I want to reach out to that person. Or you may be on the other end of that where somebody calls you and says, I never forgot about you. Or I just want to spend the holidays with you. Or I wanted to reach out to you for New Year's, whatever. Very ghost of ex-boyfriend or girlfriend past type of vibe can definitely happen. The whole thing just reminds me of A Christmas Story. Or I guess I should say, what is it with Scrooge? I can't even remember. It's not A Christmas Story, totally different movie. Well, it could be. It's a little thick and twisted, but Mercury's going retrograde in conjunction with Venus. So there can be a sense of reviewing and reevaluating our relationships, our values, our money. Some of us are going to be looking at our bank statements going like, oh my God, how much did I spend on Christmas this year? Wanting to return gifts can be another thing. So receipts, especially on gadgets, or if you're giving somebody something, give them a gift receipt in the off chance that people want to return it and they don't like something. But this is a very significant aspect, that the first thing that Mercury does is it comes into contact with Venus. So we're waking up to this on the 29th, and there can be this I never forgot you text message or phone call, or it can be the oh my God, where did I put my wallet type of vibe. And all the more because this is also going to be making sextiles to Neptune. So it's things that we didn't see coming. Now, Venus sextile Neptune's nice. It's socializing, sexual, creative, magnetic, magical. But when you have Mercury and Venus moving so closely together, as they have been in the skies recently, there's this reorganization and rethinking when it comes to love. And it's very kind of robotic and pulling things apart, and it doesn't feel as romantic. So I could see a lot of people not entirely being pleased with some of the gifts that they get, or not feeling the love when it comes to spending time with their families or their loved ones right around the holiday, unfortunately. Now, Mercury is about travel. Capricorn is about big companies. Venus is about resources. So I could also see that sometime between, Christmas Eve and New Year's Day, people trying to travel, they can't get refunds on, cars that they have reserved, or hotels. There could be weather issues. So there's, delays, and then they're having to kind of either get refunded, or they're having to pay more to get on another plane, and they're like, give me my money back. That stuff can be happening as well. But what really interests me the most in the midst of all of this is that it's not just that it's conjunct Venus. It's that it's going to be conjunct Venus, and technically it's going to be enclosed. Let me show you here. Between Pluto and Venus. So, Pluto obviously is kind of like one of the badasses of astrology. He is about regeneration and fears and purging and detoxification and, ending something or resurrecting something. And then Venus is about love and values. So to see Mercury, who's kind of like mixed up, doesn't know what direction to go in, looking at this going, I'm between a rock and a hard place. There's either the relationship and the love, or that person, or that security. And then there's the fear of letting go, right? Or endings, or something that can be really scary. It's almost like he's indecisive about the state of a relationship, or a purchase, or a goal, maybe. That's something else. Now, globally, this is outside of just my hot takes on this. I've been beating the drum on this for several months, and I'm starting to see some of this coming out in the media now. Unfortunately, the darker side of some of these transits are going to be the fact that, you know, Pluto is the end. It is the last stop. So it does deal with death. It does deal with endings, releasings, letting go. And Mercury can be a document, Venus can be money. We are going to see insane layoffs from large companies. It's in the works, it's coming. Some of the stuff you guys have heard just about Amazon isn't even the half of it. I feel like they're trying to delay this from getting out because they're trying to either wait until the year end, or they're trying to wait to the new year, and then they will start severing, you know, some jobs and letting some people go. Will it affect everybody? No, but I think that larger companies are more likely to see major executives leave or step down, or they're trying to trim the fat for those who have larger salaries. I also feel like government positions and roles can also be part of this. So government, you know, branches, institutions, you know, seeing that we may be facing some budgeting issues in certain areas. And just thinking back to when we had Saturn going through these degrees, this is when we had the government shutdowns, not the lockdowns, but when they couldn't agree on, you know, spending budgets and things like that. Like, we were having issues with everything from, I think it was like postal stuff to, I mean, you name it. We just so many issues with not being able to pass any legislation or agree on anything when it came to debt and spending. We may see similar things, okay? And if it's not going to be on that level, it's definitely going to be for some major businesses. I feel like this taking place also in the tail end of Pluto being there is like us realizing we're a year down the road, and some local governments and some national governments still don't know what they're doing, right? We are going to hear more headlines about money going missing. Mercury retrograde is a document relating to government officials in conjunction to Venus. I'm sure some of you guys have heard, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, about just this large sum of, I think, trillions of dollars that has gone missing from the federal budget. Go and check that headline. You guys can fact check it, but it's like there's almost, you know, $1 trillion that's unaccounted for. We don't know where that money went. I don't know if it's the Pentagon or what it is, but this is the kind of like Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus and Pluto stuff we're going to see. Scandals, especially involving sex crimes, unfortunately, or things relating to scandalous women or affairs in the media. Scandals relating to taxes and insider information and trades within politicians. When we had this same retrograde at the beginning of 2022, granted Venus was retrograde as well. We won't have this time, but Venus is closed. That's when all the decisions were being made about what was going to be happening in the Supreme Court in regards to the potential abortion ban. Literally, judges and government officials and people meeting, very Mercury in Capricorn, in secret, conjunct Pluto, only to release some of that information. Actually, we got into spring when we had the Mercury retrograde in Taurus. So there will be something that will stink in the midst of this retrograde. Will we find out during that time? Maybe. Do we have to wait until we get to next spring? Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. But I definitely think that more will be coming up next year. But decisions will be made in secret. Secret and scandal are definitely a huge theme when you have Venus getting this close to Pluto. And Mercury's trying to receive that information. When we look at Mercury retrograde from just like more of like an esoteric standpoint, you know, Mercury is literally going to hell and coming back. That's part of what the Mercury retrograde is about. He goes to the underworld, he receives the information, he comes back, he's reborn, he becomes visible again, right? And finally pulls ahead and will get out from the beams of the sun and then can relay some of this information. So being that it's happening in a sign that is about boundaries and limits and endings, and it gets close to Pluto, which rules Hades, there's going to be some darker stuff that's definitely going to come up in the midst of this. And I guess I also anticipate that there's probably not going to be the best news in regards to spending, and that can be, you know, whether or not we're seeing that people aren't spending as much money, or that people are spending money but they're putting it on credit, right? Which we do know there's been, you know, more debt that's going on credit cards more than ever before. And that's very Pluto as well. You know, people saying, okay, just buy now, pay later. but the effects that that's actually going to start having when some people have to start making those payments come the beginning of January. Be very careful with loans. Be very careful with debts right now. Be very careful with large purchases, because I think that we're going to see something suddenly turn in regards to what the Fed is saying about the state of the economy and the health of the economy, and also inflation right around the time of the new year. All right. So we're going to see that happening. They're going to be obviously in conjunction until Mercury gets back to about 23-ish degrees. But even as Venus is pulling ahead around the 30th, it's going to be pulling ahead, and it's going to come into a collision course with Pluto. So we've got Venus coming into conjunction with Pluto. When do I think we're going to feel the effects of this? It's not just because not just because Venus and Pluto will be in conjunction. Mercury is going to be close by, but the moon will be in Aries on December 30th, and the moon is going to be squaring Mercury, making it difficult to communicate. We're feeling this fierceness, this need for independence. It'll then square Venus, so it'll be difficult in terms of being able to express our emotions and our feelings. That moon in Aries is heated. It likes intensity and passion. And then the moon is going to come into a square with Pluto. So the lunar transits on the 30th are what's really setting this Capricorn stellium up, okay? All right, so then we get to the actual conjunction, and obviously I know this is more about Mercury, but still Venus's conjunction is very, very, very close to Mercury. It's within 4 degrees, so we're still going to be feeling the effects of that. So some of this can actually pepper into around the 31st. And obviously I'll do a video on Venus-Pluto, but intense, intoxicating, obsessive love themes definitely come up with that. And then this is going to kind of do its thing. Mercury keeps retrograding. It's still in a sextile to Neptune come the turn of the year. We do reap some benefits on January 1st as the moon is in its exaltation in Taurus, trining all of this out, but it's still going to have the squares to Saturn. So it's not as easy, especially with that moon in Taurus and Venus and Pluto are conjunct. I feel like just a lot of intensity come the turn of the new year. All right, so Mercury keeps doing its thing. It's in a sextile until about the 3rd with Neptune. And this is the next big aspect. So this is going to be when we see the Sun-Mercury cazimi on February the 6th. Now we see several cazimis a year. It's not totally abnormal. But in a Mercury retrograde phase, this is the turning point, right? So if you're not already aware of like what was the point of the Mercury retrograde, what am I here to learn? What's the secret sauce? What's the message? What am I supposed to be rethinking or reorganizing? Likely this might be the day where you have an epiphany. So this is going to be on January 6th. And it looks like that particular cazimi will be around 17 degrees. And you'll have that all day on the 6th, even into early morning on the 7th. So the 6th is the day that you want to be watching. 17 all the way to about 16 degrees, especially if you're 16, 17-ish, 15, 16, 17 of Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising. That's a day where there can be a profound insight, there can be a download, there can be a shift. The cazimi is the more superior kind of transit. Usually when we have planets conjunct the sun, they're burnt up, right? So Mercury conjunct the sun, it's like your mind is on fire. But when Mercury pulls ahead of the sun here, it's relaying some kind of information, still sandwiched between the sun and Pluto. So this need for change, transformation, releasing something, some kind of rebirth. Interesting that the full moon also, that's going to be taking place on the 6th of January, which looks like it's going to be in Cancer, is going to be strongly featuring this cazimi. So that will be probably all day long. This, oh my gosh, just realized this thing. I just restructured this thing. I just finally sealed the deal on this job. I just agreed to something. So more on that. We'll do that soon. It's not for about a month. But that cazimi is going to be very strong, and Mercury continues to keep moving retrograde. And it's going to come back into a square with Chiron. So we're going to feel the ouchies of maybe somebody giving us some constructive criticism, or we're feeling the the pain or the challenge revolving around responsibility and showing up in the world and, you know, really kind of taking our place in general. That's going to be around the 10th of January, 2023. Be kind with your words this day. I mean, you know, Chiron is direct now, even though Mercury is retrograde. So that does kind of suggest that the wounds might be more visible. We might be more sensitive. We might be more reactionary during this time. Thankfully, once again, while we're having this transit, look right on time. The moon's moving through Virgo. So the 10th and the 11th, a way to neutralize that is to communicate, make the physical changes, be willing to be of service, be willing to help other people. Thankfully, we're going to have that lunar transit that's going to kind of shape up a little bit better. Mercury continues to keep moving retrograde all the way until we get to its stationing. And like I said, that will be at 8 degrees. And that'll be on the 18th or 19th. Looks like that's going to be... Looks like it's going to station here. Okay. On the 18th in the early morning at 8 degrees. Hi, happy Sun Pluto day. It's like, oh man, you just can't make this stuff up. We're in the midst of Capricorn season still. It's the tail end of Capricorn season. You have the sun come into conjunction with Pluto. The last conjunction before Pluto goes into Aquarius, I may add. So there is some big profound shift or change taking place. And then high, we have Venus coming into conjunction with Saturn. So many planets at the late degrees is telling me we're completing a very big phase that's changing in Capricorn and in Aquarius in our charts. So technically, yes, Mercury has gone direct on the 18th, so we can proceed forward. However, we're in a balsamic moon. So I would wait, if you absolutely have to do something, until after the moon comes into contact with Mercury, and this is going to be the PM hours on the 19th. We're needing to communicate and express what we've worked out or what we've been thinking about or what we're clearing out, because this is definitely in a clearing phase, right? We're getting ready to come into a new moon, and we're doing a lot of detoxifying as that moon comes into conjunction with Pluto. And then we're going to see a new moon in Aquarius at the very first degree. Pluto is very close by, and Venus is coming into conjunction with Saturn. So it's like, man, we really don't have any business really securing or agreeing to anything until we get to around the time of this new moon. But wait, there's more. Not only is this a very Saturnian new moon and Plutonian as well with Pluto, but now we have Mercury and Mars both direct. It's been months of a Mars retrograde at this point. For those of you guys who have been following the Mars and Gemini saga, it's like 7 months of this retrograde. Mercury's direct, so the mind is now kind of getting stable and clear. Mars is direct. Our actions are forward thinking. Oh, but they're both in conjunct each other. So, you know, you guys know I'm always going to keep it real. If this were me personally, and you're talking to somebody who's been looking at this for the last 2 months being like, everything's going to be topsy-turvy, and it definitely is. It's going through my personal planets. I'm going to be moving in the midst of all this stuff. I would wait until we see Mercury coming into a trine with the North Node, which is going to be on January 22nd. So we've got Mercury trine the North Node, and it's just right after this new moon phase. If you want to wait longer, you can wait until you come out of the shadow. Granted, like I said, it's going to take a little bit, but we're going to see Mercury come into then a trine for the second time with Uranus, and that's going to also be with the moon. So that looks like that's kind of setting up also around right here. So that's around January 28th. So if you guys can see what I'm looking at, Mercury hits 14, it trines Uranus and also the moon. So January 28th is also a good day for kind of pulling the trigger and making a decision post Mercury retrograde. And it's going to be until Mercury comes out of that shadow. So we're going to see Mercury's going to start coming into a sextile again with Neptune. Looks like that's going to be happening closer to February 5th. It's going to hit 23 degrees. So on February 5th, Mercury is sextile Neptune. Dreamy, whimsical, creative, similar to the end of December. And then we are going to see, let's see, on February 10th, this is going to be quite action-packed because Mercury stopped short of Pluto. So now finally Mercury is going to come into conjunction with Pluto. And that's going to be on February 9th, right here. Which personally, I mean, that's a really intense, profound, letting out a secret, realizing something, totally committing to a change, changing with work, changing with schedule. It's going to get a little hairy here because you're going to see Mercury and Pluto actually hitting. Are they both going to hit 29 degrees at the same time? Not, yeah, they will, right around. So Pluto's right there, but the moon's going to square this. So on February 11th, the moon in Libra comes into a square with both Pluto and Mercury in the late degrees. Also not the easiest day for communication, but granted, Mercury's at a shadow. So it's like anytime after 24 degrees, you guys are good. So the shadow period is basically going to be done at this point, but there's still quite a bit of Mercury kind of conjunctions and squares that are going on. What I'm anticipating is that being that this is stopping short of Pluto, it's also stopping short of going into Aquarius. If you notice on February 11th, it conjuncts Pluto. We see the sun come into conjunction with Saturn on the 16th of February. And then we are going to see that Moon-Saturn conjunction. Likely what we're going to find out mid-February is that limitation, isolation, separation, changes in borders, things like that. This is the new normal, right? Hi, Saturn's going into Pisces. So as Saturn is leaving Aquarius, it's going to say, well, it's normal to be socially isolated, or it's normal to have separate groups, or there's going to be something normal about, you know, being different. Boom, Pluto's going to go into Aquarius. Some very, very, very big changes that are happening in the new year, guys. And we're going to realize that there has been a step-by-step process these last several years to getting the masses divided, feeling alone, and feeling like it's like globalists preparing for some kind of takeover. As much as I hate to say that, that's kind of what it's like looking like to me. Even though this is outside of like the Mercury retrograde shadow in general, if those of you guys are wondering, well, when does Mercury leave Capricorn? It's going to conjunct Pluto. It's going to go into Aquarius on February looks like it's going to be probably the 11th, actually. Yeah, in the evening, February 11th, it goes into Aquarius, but you're not going to miss it because it's going to touch Pluto first. All right, so just some themes, just like my takeaway, just so you guys know what to be expecting, and then I'll take you guys through the 12 different signs. Those of you guys who are looking to switch jobs, change jobs, you know, take a new position, you might have changes within your office space or with your superiors or your bosses. If you're wanting to make a change to your schedule, if you're wanting to quit your job, things like that, that can be something that can come up because of some of the aspects. Obviously, we talked about people getting laid off, but it can also be about people retiring. So it can be like, hey, you know, I've had a good run, I'm passing the torch now, or I'm selling my business, or I'm bringing in my kid to kind of run the family business. These can be other ways that we anticipate a Mercury retrograde in Capricorn can kind of play out. And like I said, changes in government, but especially in regards to rules, limit, control. That's another theme of Capricorn. And borders. Borders are something that I would be on the lookout for, especially cities and countries that are associated with Capricorn. So just off the top of my head, I think of like Germany and Mexico, and I'm sure there's more, but definitely those have kind of connections to Capricorn. Capricorn's also about mountains, or anything in regards to higher elevation, or goats. Also snow, or anything connected to like colder colder places in general. So we might hear more in terms of weather kind of affecting our ability to travel or the ability to kind of get work done. Signals too, that might be something else that we kind of have issues with. Yeah, some kind of more cover up type conspiracy type stuff I'm anticipating we're gonna hear more about. Also, just to kind of remind you guys, definitely look back. So this is a time period I want you guys to think about, to around December 29th of 2021. Even I have to look at this because I don't remember what was going on then. But I bring this up, here we go, because we had some very similar degrees that were getting activated here. So right around this time, oh, the 29th, I'm a little early. There we go. Right around this time, we had Mercury at this same degree. It was conjunct Pluto, and Venus was retrograde. So Venus was retrograde, so emotions were challenging, relationship dynamics and stuff was a little all over the place. But because we're seeing that Venus went retrograde here and Mercury's going through it, we can be bringing that up and talking about that, or it's kind of showing itself in a very similar way. And then it looks like this is going to go all the way through February 8th. And part of this is because there was a Mercury retrograde that did take place in Capricorn, and it dropped back to similar degrees. So when Mercury was retrograde, it started in Aquarius, it went back into Capricorn, but you might want to look at like the January 30th through February 8th period. And that's because that's right where Mercury was retrograding. So that's why I warned everybody, like, hey, if something's a problem now, like, make it a much bigger deal, because you'll be in the same situation 1 year later. Obviously, like I said, Venus isn't retrograde here, but look what happens just right after this period. Pluto was there, Mercury was retrograde there, here comes Venus, and here comes Mars. And that was right around February 26th through right around March 1st. Now, obviously, exalted Mars there is nice. Venus moving through Capricorn, okay, great. But Venus, Mars, and Pluto all came in conjunction, and there was this really intense either exchange or power up or breakdown or transformation, depending on how you use that energy. I can only reflect back on what was going on with me. Going through my stellium, it was my 4th house, it was square my moon. It was not an easy time, but what could be difficult for one person could be really amazing for other people. I just make these connections so you guys can go back and go, oh, this is what happened. Like, you know, like uncle got drunk and got into it with my sister. Like that stuff, especially with the sextiles to Neptune, can kind of repeat. So just be on high alert for some of that stuff. I'm now going to give you all the specifics in terms of degrees, so you guys know what to look out for. So I'm sure you're wondering, who is this going to affect the most? Well, if you have any placements from 8 to 24 degrees of Capricorn, that's pretty much almost all of the Capricorn placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, you're going to feel this the most because you're going to see that Mercury will go retrograde through these degrees. Second to 8 to 24 degrees of the cardinal signs. So Aries and Cancer and Libra, you're going to be experiencing squares. This is especially important for any of the cardinal signs, especially Capricorn. If you have something around 8 degrees or 24 degrees, this retrograde is very important because it's going to station and it's going to either conjunct or square these on your angles. It means life's going to get a little bit louder, okay, for you cardinal signs. If you have 8 degrees to 24 degrees of Virgo or Taurus, this is positive for you because it's happening in a sister sign. It is going to be making trines or aspects to your personal placements, your sun, moon, rising, what have you. Obviously, Virgo, you're ruled by Mercury, so we'll get into that. So it can definitely be felt stronger, but it's really helpful. And the trines are meant to bring you physical, stable support, okay? Those of you guys who have 8 to 24 degrees of Pisces or Scorpio, right? You will be experiencing a sextile. So this tells me that there is going to be some kind of reorganization, rethinking, strategizing that's going to better kind of support your emotions and your feelings. So believe it or not, it's actually here to help you in some capacity. For all my air signs, you will be experiencing emotional shifts about physical change. So you're just going to be feeling your feelings, right? And things are going to be changing and things might be ending or beginning in some way, and you're going to be in your feelings a little bit more. And for my fire signs, you're going to be experiencing physical shifts within either your health, finances, or your work. You'll see this change happen, and it is not as most active for fire and air, but still, nevertheless, you know, you guys are going to feel the effects of this as well, okay? All right. So I want to take you guys through the 12 rising signs. Let me set this up so we can do that, make this a little bit easier. As always, I'm a Western astrologer, so this is going to be for Western astrology. I do not practice Vedic astrology. I do use Vedic techniques, so you might see some similar flavors there. And I want you guys to listen for your rising sign first, followed by your sun and your moon sign. The rising sign is going to be the most accurate. It's going to tell you where it's taking place, but you'll see some glimmers of some stuff that's really helpful in your sun and your moon sign as well. But yeah, listen to all three. And this is general because it's going to be whole sign. So if you guys are a Placidus user, you may have to actually listen for the physical house that the retrograde will be in, and it might be more than one sign. So you might have to listen to both. All the more reason to really understand your chart or book a reading with me. Click the links below. If you don't have your chart, go online, Google free astrological chart calculator. You want to be using one for Western astrology. You put in your time, birth, date, location information. It's going to pop up. It's going to give you a chart that's going to look like this one. Find Capricorn. That area of your life is where you're going to be having this retrograde. The 9 o'clock hour, right? So right here, this is going to be your rising sign. So you want to count from your rising sign where Capricorn is. Whatever sign that is, that's the one that you want to listen to, okay? All right. So let's go ahead and start with my Aries and my Aries rising. You're like, yeah, I got it. I've heard all of that. Obviously, when I speak about this generally, Aries risings get a little bit of a longer lecture. But for you guys, Mercury's going retrograde in your 10th house of career, responsibility, your public image, okay? So this can be a time where you're changing jobs, going back to jobs, quitting a job, finding out that there's some inter-office drama, finding out that a boss is relocating or retiring, something like that can be happening. Can some of you guys change jobs, lose jobs, or switch jobs? Yes, that can happen, especially because it's in such close proximity to Pluto. But Mercury rules the 6th house of health as well as coworkers. It also rules the 3rd house of communication as well as contracts. So I could see a situation where it's like a company is getting bought out, it's being restructured, you're finding out that you're moving to a different department, and you're gonna have to, you know, make friends with new employees. Something like that can happen. Equally, those of you guys who are trying to negotiate something about a new position or taking a job, you might actually have to sign a contract or have a meeting of some kind in order to be able to secure this, and you're going back and forth on the details. The other way that I look at it is because Mercury rules your health and the 3rd house rules lungs or anything in regards to breathing. Please, Aries, take care of yourself, take care of your health. Some of you guys may actually be out of work for a period of time if you're experiencing either an injury to your hands or if you are having to kind of just rest and get better. Equally, if you have a pet that's having a health-related issue because of the connection to the 6th, you may have to be working remotely. If you've got like a sibling that needs some support, you might have to work remotely. It could also mean that your work schedule somehow has to change because some of you guys might be moving. So you might be finding that you need assistance with a move or a relocation because of the connection to your 3rd house. Moving office, moving house, what have you, it'll affect your business. So just a heads up, there will be some changes, some bumps at work, but I'm liking the fact that it's going to be making some positive aspects to your 2nd house because it makes me feel like there are some things worth paying for. Whether it's hiring somebody from TaskRabbit to come over and, you know, put together a shelf in an office so you don't have to do it. If it means that you somehow are renegotiating, you know, to get a stronger position and to make more money, whatever. This is a retrograde that you actually actively want to participate in. And it'll be really, really, really important for you to communicate. Keep in mind, my Aries, as Mars is going retrograde through your 3rd house, that it's important to really take a deep breath before you communicate, think everything through, because there's some connection about learning to meet other people in the middle and being able to find a middle ground. And for some of you guys, it's learning just how to delegate tasks better. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Let's see what the tarot has to say for my Aries and my Aries rising. Oh, hi Priestess, hello. I mean, that's pretty much just validating what I told you, but this can also be talking about your intuition and your foresight and your ability to be like, I think this is going to be a problem. Let's make a tweak here or a change there. This can just talk about you using your intuition to navigate what can be some difficult or challenging things in regards to your career over these next few weeks. But that you see it coming. Part of it might be listening to this video that you're like, okay, I just need to kind of, you know, put my big boy or girl pants on and be prepared and boss up with this Mercury retrograde in your 10th. But at least you know some of this stuff is coming, all right? Good luck. Let's now take a look at the Taurus and Taurus risings. What's going on, guys? Hopefully you're well. As you know by now, there is a Mercury retrograde coming. That's going to be taking place in your natal 9th house of Capricorn. So let's talk about the positive, right? The positive is that it's in a sister sign. So it's going to make some kind of trine to your sun or your moon or your rising. And the 9th house where Mercury is retrograding is about the bigger picture. It's about your beliefs. It's about travel, gurus, education. So if you're wanting to book a flight or go somewhere, just use some caution, right? Make sure that you double and triple check your dates. Make sure that you understand all of the details. Make sure that you are thoroughly prepared also. And you've done your research on where you're traveling to and where you're going. The 9th house can be like a foreign country. So you might have to adapt to language. It might also require a little bit more research when it comes to actually thinking about what it is that you want to do and how you're going to have fun while you're there. Mercury rules your 5th house of having fun, taking chances, games, lovers, and children. It also rules your 2nd house, which deals with money and resources. So for Mercury to go retrograde here, it makes me think like you're reevaluating, what do I love? What do I believe in? What do I want to go back and study? It can be about you finding a way to kind of get reconnected to a hobby, maybe something you did while you were younger. It can also mean that you're willing to spend a little bit more money when it comes to travel so you can include a loved one or a child. Just keep in mind that while Mars is going retrograde in your 2nd house, you're feeling a little tighter on cash and you're being a little bit more careful when it comes to spending. So you might be kind of trying to find more creative ways to travel and have fun without breaking the bank. Legal stuff, right? Especially relating to completing legal documents, lawsuits. Sometimes looking at the 5th house lord and the 2nd house lord, it can be about divorce settlements. It can be about child support. That can be something else that can be coming up, and you're reevaluating how much money do I have to spend? How much money do I have to give? Do I have to, you know, put a retainer down on an attorney? Hopefully not. But the fact that it's going to go retrograde in conjunction to both Pluto as well as Venus, very potent for you. So your relationships are either changing, maybe you're really reevaluating a relationship, a marriage. If you could see yourself getting married, obviously not a good time to be doing that with Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus. But it's a time to reconnect and think about your beliefs, your philosophy about relationships in general and what you value, right? What you value. Let's take a look here, Taurus, at what the cards have to say for you. 6 of Swords, being in limbo, moving on, far distance trips as well. Some of you guys might be thinking about returning somewhere that you've been before. Some of you guys might feel like you're kind of in limbo, maybe legal limbo, life limbo. The 9th house is a positive house though. It's about the bigger picture. So I think that your philosophy and your belief system about hard work, about travel, about relocation is all changing and possibly opening up more, and you're trying to be a little bit more positive and optimistic. And it's really changing your outlook, especially when it comes to what you value. So maybe you're valuing less material things, more experiences, right? The freedom of being able to just pick up and go somewhere. But it does talk about being in a temporary space, and perhaps maybe travel can actually be wonderful to kind of help you get some of that stuff kind of in order, you know? Good luck. We have now got Gemini and Gemini rising. Welcome, Gems. This is important, as it is for everybody, but you are the first of my mercurial signs. So you know that Mercury traditionally has associations with you and how you communicate and your body, okay? Mercury also rules your 4th house of home and family. So when it comes to either you, your appearance, your body, how you communicate, or your home, your private life, stuff like that, these are the 2 topics that Mercury rules over. So as Mercury moves through the skies, whatever Mercury does is a kind of a symbol of you. So Mercury turning retrograde in Capricorn in your natal 8th house is you reevaluating and you reviewing 8th house topics. So it can be about you going, okay, I want to change and transform 8th house, something about my home, my family, my roots, right? I want to, evaluate my joint resources. I want to rework something about, a mortgage. You can go and refinance a mortgage. You can go and sit down and have a conversation with an accountant and talk about how you can save money or how you can put more money into a 401k. You can get new quotes for car insurance, life insurance, health insurance. This is something you could do during that retrograde because it's in the 8th house of others and it's conjunct Pluto. I think some of you guys are weighing your options when it comes to your home and paying your bills and like how you can get your cost of living lower or how you can transform your home, like renovating your home or additions or, knocking down walls or even painting things, but sticking to a budget. You're gonna have to talk to somebody else about that. So whether it's a partner or whether this is just a bank or you're going and talking to a designer because Venus is gonna be there, I can see that being the case. The 8th house has some darker sides though. Stuff like inheritance or money owed, spousal support, things like that definitely come up. So you can see that there is another person who's involved in this back and forth that you're having in regards to your resources. But for the most part, it's also a wonderful time to kind of open up about some difficult financial or some difficult intimacy issues that you may be having. So if you're in a pinch financially, and you need to talk to somebody about that, it's the time to do it. If you're in a situation where also you're open to going to therapy or couples therapy or trauma therapy, and you're realizing that there is some kind of like crisis, 8th house that's coming up, you can handle it, you can move through it. Thankfully, you're gonna have Venus there, so it can be also about like art therapy or something relating to even something paying off. So if money's due to you, if money's owed to you, this can be a time where you could actually get paid back as well, okay? Let's take a look and let's see what these cards have to say. It can also be about a transformation of how you make money and also your career, because you got Saturn getting ready to go into your 10th house. So I think that this is great negotiating power also to be able to bring more resources in, especially if you have a business partner. The card that I get is the Page of Wands. So this is active, vibrant, younger, youthful energy. So it can be about younger children. It can also be about fire signs. So Leos or Sages or Aries kind of coming into your life to help you kind of drum up more fun or more inspiration. But this is the beginning phase because the page is the beginning of all the court cards. So it says, I want to learn how to, paint or draw or dance. Okay, how do I do that? I have to be willing to invest a little bit into that, or I need to be willing to overcome my fears, 8th house, of being expressive and being creative. It can also be about taking chances and taking risks. So some of you guys might be evaluating whether or not it's time to invest in the stock market, invest in, a project, or if it's time to take a little bit of money off the table. So even though this is like a more active sign and it's curious, there is a sense of also like being a little bit more cautious and inexperienced. So you might be learning something new about joint resources and investing as well, okay? Good luck, Gemini. We have Cancers and Cancer rising. Hopefully you guys are doing well. You are the very first of my cardinal people, right? Other than Aries. So you're going to be really feeling the pressure. So all of you guys, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you're going to feel this. What can I say? You've got a Mercury retrograde in your 7th house, okay? So when you have the retrogrades in a cardinal house, it's louder. It's a little bit more life-changing. Mercury rules your 3rd house of communication, short distance travel, emails, text messages, cars, moving, all of that stuff. And Mercury also rules your 12th house, which deals with self-undoing, stuff that's hidden, your subconscious. Can't tell you how many Cancer risings I've heard from that have been like, I'm not communicating well with my partner, whether it's your, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, hookup, business partner, whatever. Communication issues with other people, right? This is because Mercury will go retrograde in your 7th house. So it's in your opposite sign, Cancer, okay? So it's about other people coming back to you, renegotiating with you, calling you from the past, wanting to reconnect, right? And it's not just limited to romantic partners. Capricorn is business. So it can be managers, people who you used to work with, coworkers, who call you, email you, text you, and they're like, hey, what's going on? Now, this can be something very sudden or unexpectedly, or it could also be that you have a dream or you have a feeling or you have a hunch and then you call them and then you kind of open up the lines of communication. If you have a business manager, it can be a wonderful time for a renegotiation of that agreement or that contract that you have, working with them. Somebody who's representing you out in the world. It can also be a time where you change therapists, counselors, business partners. All of these people can kind of do-si-do during a Mercury retrograde here. More challenging though, because I feel like it's about either the truth coming out, where you're speaking your truth and you're, kind of just a little bit more word vomity in terms of your fears or your anxieties when it comes to some of these people and like saying what you need to say. Or you're sitting and meditating and reflecting on, okay, if it's meant to be, that person will reach out to me, and then bing, you get a text message. You might notice some of that stuff. There can definitely be some telepathic conversations going on as a result of this Mercury retrograde. What can happen when you have a Mercury retrograde in your 7th? Your ex calls you, right? They can call you and say, hey, how's it been? Or I have this thing of yours. Do you want to come and get it? Like, watch out for the poison apples, literally, because Mercury will be conjunct both Venus and also the and Pluto. Especially if it's someone you lived with, or if you had your belongings at somebody's house, if you've had a really long drawn out issue back and forth with somebody. A Mercury retrograde can also, for some people, finally in some relationships, help you hash things out and be like, I just have to sit down and I have to say something. So 7th house isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it's about needing to kind of clear the air with people. But you and a couple other signs, more than the rest of the zodiac, are more prone to hearing from others. My advice would be, look, let the chips fall where they may. If you need closure in a relationship, you may very well get it. Pluto's leaving your 7th house soon. If you want to reconnect with somebody and you're open to it, just practice caution and be very careful, because there can be a sense of like either you not telling them the whole story or them not telling you the whole story. And secrets and drama can come up here, especially if it's involving like he said, she said, or screenshots, because Mercury rules the 3rd, or siblings or neighbors that somehow factor into the drama. Just spare yourself. Trust me on this, because it can get rather messy here. But on the flip side, if somebody's been away, if they haven't been around, if you haven't been connecting with somebody as much, they may come back, and it may give you the opportunity to reconnect and spend time with them, possibly. So let's see what the cards say here. 9 of Wands. It's kind of like, I'm not trying to be negative, but there's not very many people, and you'll see this more next year, because we're going to start having the nodes move into, to Libra and Aries, especially for a Cancer rising. It's like, if you've been having this long drawn out needing to get rid of that toxic person you love, you can finally get the show on the road now and like give them their stuff back and have that closure. Or you can wait until the eclipses start and the nodes square next year, but it's going to be messier. It's going to be more difficult. For those of you guys who aren't partnered, or you're in a relationship and it's healthy, it may be a client, it might be, somebody in your family that you just need to kind of finally X out, whatever. 9 of Wands is like, I've had enough. I've been through enough. I've dealt with enough. I've gotten kind of beat up in the process. And feeling like you don't really know if you want to go on or if you can't take much more of it. That might be some of the conversations that you're having with that 7th house, of being like, I don't know how much longer I want to stay in this, work collaboration or this partnership, or having you as my roommate, whatever. And having to kind of really express where there's been some really painful kind of exchanges that have gone on in terms of this dynamic, and not wanting to carry on because you're needing to kind of tend to your own wounds. Mars is retrograde in your 12th. So going back to some of these really difficult or toxic dynamics don't necessarily help you heal or find clarity either. Take care of you first, Cancer. All right, so we have got Leo and Leo rising. Mercury will be going a retrograde in Capricorn in your natal 6th house. This deals with your day-to-day, coworkers, your office space, the gym, the doctor's office, your to-do list, that kind of stuff. But definitely Capricorn in the 6th is like your commitment to your health, or your commitment to your schedule and who you're working with or managing and working with other people. Kind of some interesting stuff here. So Mercury rules your 3rd house of communication, your 2nd house of money. Hello. It rules your 2nd house of money and anything in regards to your personal values, your belongings, your purchasing power, objects. And it also rules your 11th house, which deals with friends, goals, socializing, things like that. So usually Mercury retrograde in the 6th is like, I'm going back to the gym. I'm going back to get test results from the doctor. I am going back to an old job. I'm reorganizing my work desk. I'm finally working through my to-do list, whatever. So I think that there is like a sense of you having to be better when it comes to time or money management. These are the 2 things that come up right now. So if you've changed jobs recently and you're making less money, or if you've changed jobs recently and you're having to kind of rework your schedule because you're working so much, to find the time to food prep, go to the gym, organize, clean your space, all of that stuff. That's what happens. If you're looking to change jobs, this might be a good time to do it. If you're looking to let go and get rid of a bad habit, especially if it's something that you eat, now is the time to do it. Be mindful of who you share company with, because Mercury rules your 11th. So if you're like, I'm not drinking, I'm not partying, I'm going to the gym, and then you're hanging out with your hood rat friends that like to be out all night and drink and party and smoke, and they're like, don't worry, I'll go to the gym, you might regress a little bit with some of your habits. Conflict and squabbles, miscommunications, gossip in the workplace, definitely a thing. Watch your pets, make sure you're watering your plants. And if you do need to really kind of get back into the swing of maintaining a schedule where you have more work-life balance and you're doing the things that you need to do for you and your health, so be it. Even if that means hiring a trainer, having your food prepared for you, hiring a personal assistant, having somebody come in and help you organize your home. These can be things that you do while Mercury is retrograde in your 6th house. Some of you guys might be feeling you need more time before going back to work. So some of you guys are taking time off to recover from health-related things before knowing that you're ultimately going to go back to work in the new year. That's the other way that I look at it. Pay attention to your goals, especially to just how you're spending money or just how your body feels. And I know it's been a long one for Leo risings. All of the fixed signs have kind of gotten just clobbered all year long with the squares. But now is not the time to segue and fall back into old patterns, because you got Aquarius going into your sign in the new year. There is a need for you to be healthy, for you to be really structured with your time, to be making sure that you're doing your due diligence to get your work done. Because that needs to be solid before you go into some of these big relationship changes in the new year, okay? So let's take a look at what's happening. Some of you guys are going to cut something out of your diet. I can see that for sure because Mercury rules your 2nd, but let's see what the cards say. Ace of Cups. Well, this is a wonderful card. I think the fact that Venus is in the mix here can be part of it. Venus being associated with what you love, and it's about your work, and it's also going to be about your communication. So you're like, yeah, it's hard work, but I love it, right? I love the results. I love the satisfaction. I love the feeling that I get from being able to help other people, whatever. Generally, this is a card that's about relationships. So I'm also like wondering, like with Mercury retrograde and Venus there, is there an opportunity for there to be some inter-office romance? Maybe. That's definitely possible. I would assume with the Mercury retrograde, there's a sense of like wanting to keep it on the down low, right? But I think this is more about feeling like because you have more structure and routine in your day-to-day life, you're feeling emotionally a little bit more stable, right? And that things are kind of coming together a lot more smoothly for you, and you're feeling stable, Could be new relationships. I don't know, but it doesn't seem very relationship-y to me. Let me know. Good luck, Leo. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. Obviously, this is important for you, my Virgos. So first of all, we've got Mercury going retrograde, and it's in your 5th house of fun and games, romance, relationships, children, taking chances, self-employment, creativity, the list goes on. It's more about finding what you love. I've talked to so many Virgo risings this month in my lives, and I've found this reoccurring theme is like, you guys are still trying to figure that out, or you're still trying to figure out how to take a side hustle or something and really turn it into like a business. Part of this transit may very well be that. Now, Mercury rules your first house of your self and body. So this is your patterns, your habits, your health, your appearance, your clothes, your look, whatever. And Mercury also rules your 10th house, which deals with responsibility, career, and work. So many Virgos, Virgo risings especially, you guys have a talent or you have something that's creative that you could do, that you could launch, but you're like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Some of you guys are also really asking yourselves, am I still in love with this thing? Do I still love this person, right? Do I still feel passionately about this? Because it's about your actions, Mercury ruling your first, and your active participation or not in the 5th house, whether that's raising your kids, if you're saying I'm not buying scratchers anymore, if you're like I'm not going to the bar anymore, if you're like I'm sick of getting my heart broken, whatever. There's a sense of you making a claim basically about what is and is not working any longer when it comes to your heart space and realistically what you're willing to emotionally involve yourself in. For so many of you guys, though, I think it's about you being like, could I be self-employed? Could I launch something? Do I want to open an Etsy? You know, am I capable of doing this thing? If you have children, kids can be a little bit more difficult, or actually a lot more difficult because of the conjunctions to Pluto and also to Venus. You might feel like they need more assistance, they're needing more care, they're needing more money. They're going through, you know, love turbulence or relationship turbulence, or maybe they're just having a hard time sharing and kind of connecting with you, right? Inner child work is so strong during this transit as well. Personally, I feel like this is about you realizing that you are the sole person who's responsible for your happiness. You can't put that on a romantic partner. You can't put that on a kid. You can't put that on a job. You have to figure out what's going to make you the happiest. And if you've been thinking for some time about taking a talent and launching it into the world, don't do it during the retrograde. Do it after the retrograde. Go back, listen to the transits that I was talking about. Wait until you start seeing some trines sometime in end of January going into February. But during the retrograde, we might go back to somebody we were in love with and reconnect with them, or go back into the dating realm. We may also go back to an old hobby or something that we used to love, that we can rekindle something there that can kind of strike a match and lead to something that we feel like is incredibly amazing and very loving and very fulfilling. And then we realize, actually, I want to keep doing this, or I want to stay with this person, or whatever. And that'll be kind of closer to February of next year. I anticipate lots of changes because you have Mars retrograde right now in your 10th, and because these trines are to your ascendant, that yes, some of you guys are realizing you want to change jobs, you want to do something that's going to feel more rewarding, you're going to want to do something that feels more creative. I encourage you to do that because this is your last go around with this Mercury retrograde. It's like the universe's way of saying, are you sure you don't want to take the plunge? Do it now. Whether it's a person or it's having a kid. Some people might find out they're pregnant during the retrograde. That's the other thing. Or you might realize you're in love with someone, or somebody might tell you that they're in love with you. In the back of my mind, these sextiles to your 7th house of, you know, Neptune is there. Saturn's going to be there next year. Some of you guys are like, okay, are we in love with each other or not? Okay, great. Are we getting married? You know, do you want to have a kid? Do I want to have a kid? These conversations can be coming up, and be true to yourself. Be true to what your heart is telling you. That's the best advice I can give you. And really lean into those trines with the North Node and Uranus in the 9th, because for some people it's booking that trip and running off and eloping. For other people, it's telling your life story and publishing a book. But there's lots of physical change that comes from feeling inspired. 3 of Cups. Sometimes 2 can become 3 with a Mercury retrograde in the 5th. This also talks about celebrating positivity, good times, enjoying yourself. Maybe you're going back and forth and you have 2 romantic offers on the table, where it's like there's one person that you're starting to see, and then that person you've always wanted to reconnect with comes back, right? That can happen. getting together, celebrating, having a good time. Ironically, the 5th house is bars, and this is like people who are having drinks and getting together and having a good time. So you might find that you're not used to going out and enjoying the nightlife, and you do, and you meet someone. But definitely good times to be had, and really focusing on happiness and coming together with like-minded people and some reason to celebrate. Okay, good luck, Virgo. For Libra and Libra rising, like all my cardinal signs, you're gonna get a little rocked by this one, Libra. I will try to heed my own advice on this one because I'm already seeing some of this stuff happen for me, and I'm like, ah. All right, so you got Mercury retrograde, right? And this is happening in Capricorn, so it's happening in your 4th house. So at the very least, it's private. That's the good thing. So the 4th house is your private life. It's what happens within your home or the 4 walls or your family or your roots. Mercury is connected to your 12th house of things you don't see coming, stuff that's hidden, or things that can involve self-sabotage or hidden emotions. And Mercury also rules your 9th house of far distance travel, anything in regards to your philosophy, your belief. It can be about education, that kind of stuff. But the Mercury retrograde is actually in your 4th. So it tells me that some of you guys are like, okay, we're reorganizing the house, we're gutting the house, we're making plans to renovate the house. Things that might have been lost might be found. That's something else that I have noticed about this transit, because the 12th house rules what's hidden. And as it goes retrograde in the 4th, maybe you're cleaning out a closet and you find, you know, like, oh, there's that pair of shoes I thought I lost, or, you know, there's that earring that fell behind the dresser. That kind of stuff will come up. Family secrets, family drama, things relating to foundational issues with homes and houses, problems with kitchens, problems with plumbing. Okay, these are things you're going to see because of the conjunctions to Pluto. Both Libra risings and Scorpio risings. Scorpio, just hold up, I'll get to you in a second. You guys are the ones who are most likely to experience a move, because the retrograde will be affecting your 3rd or your 4th house. Libras, I think that if you really reflect on just the fact that Pluto's been in your 4th house for so long, and there's been some like deep-seated like family drama or secrets or problems with homes or feeling limited or like having your space cramped, you're finally getting ready to break out of that. So whether you're finally kicking out a roommate, or you're cutting off a family member, or you're buying a house, or you're signing a new lease, or you're finally getting your own place, whatever, that seems to be the end goal. However, you're going to have to go through some shift in order to make that happen. If you are moving with a Mercury retrograde, bubble wrap everything, make sure you count everything, you label everything, because things can go missing, stuff can get broken, right? That can be a thing here. But I think that those of you guys who are moving, you might be realizing that it can be quite cathartic, that there's like this clearing out that's happening, or clearing of the attic, 12th house. And also that it's allowing you to have like a much more open or wider perspective on what is home. Where could home be? Does home have to be a place? Is it with a person? That kind of stuff. Watch for legal issues pertaining to homes, because Mercury rules the 9th. So if you're legally bound by a contract or a lease or things like that, signing them can be dicey. There can be some legal navigations. You have to really read the fine print when it comes to some of that stuff before you make a move. Family members from the past can return, especially siblings. You might have more like psychic visions or dreams or connections to people who have transitioned from the other side. Really watch, especially those of you guys who have to move, either sign your leases and stuff if you can before the retrograde, ideally before the 12th, or you're going to have to maybe move back home, spend time with family, do something temporarily, rent something short term until you're able to kind of get stabilized and figure out where you're going to go. A parent might also need you, okay? That's the long and short of it. Let's take a look and see what the cards say in terms of what you may be expecting. Ouch. 10 of Swords. Can't quite say that I'm surprised. I'm wondering if this is like a bit bittersweet, because when Mercury turns retrograde, it will come into conjunction with Venus, and you are Venus. So is this about you reflecting on the good times that you had in a home or with your family? Is this about you learning to say goodbye to a person or a place or an object or a thing, maybe? 10 of Swords is being like, oh, you know, like my heart is broken, or the damage has been done. There is no going back. So there can be some really difficult things that can kind of come up in terms of loss, endings, grief, especially relating to either home or family related things. But I guess the silver lining to this card is that this is a 10. So it's saying whatever has been a long, painful, kind of drawn out experience is finally coming to a close, but you may feel a bit hurt or wounded or emotionally kind of stabbed in the back. And as much as I hate to say this, there can be some truth here with the conjunctions between Venus and Pluto. Bittersweet because, okay, well, you know, it happened, but at least it's over and I learned something and now I move on, right? Good luck, Libra. Now we move to Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Welcome to the Mercury retrograde in Capricorn taking place in your natal 3rd house. Wowzers. So you've got Mercury, which is really associated with friends and also anything in regards to socializing and groups. And also the 8th house of change and transformation will be going retrograde in your 3rd. So you're taking this theme of re-evaluating who your friends are, what your goals are, how you communicate with people. It can be making changes when it comes to travel. Short distance travel, like if you're planning on getting out of town or a friend's going to be in town and you're going to see them, you might be like, I have some scheduling changes. It also seems to represent a bigger connection to the Mars retrograde in your 8th. And the fact that there is something profoundly shifting and changing about the way that you think and the way that you communicate, and how you're dealing with other people. So there can definitely be a lot of back and forth with 3rd house people, like neighbors, like siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, people calling you that you haven't heard from in a while, having tiffs with the neighbor because there's something that you left on their lawn or vice versa. Issues with vehicles and cars can happen as well. But I'm thinking that it's just more about like how you're communicating with others, what needs to be changing and transforming there. The 3rd house is about movement. So if you have to sign contracts, leases, mortgages, if you're thinking about buying a car, I would advise all of you guys, put that off. You don't need to do that right now. Buying cars, buying houses, moving, unless these are things that you absolutely positively have to do, you want to do it before the 12th. And if you are going to do it, you need to read all of the fine print. Why? Because there may be some kind of technicality when it comes to money. So let's say, for example, you decide to sign a lease, and you don't read the fine print and you realize that if you break the lease at any point, you're going to have to pay, you know, the remaining kind of balance on that lease. Pretty standard. But you may not look at that during the Mercury retrograde. Then you get, you know, 6, 7, 8 months down the road, you need to break your lease. And they're like, that's going to be about $5,000. And you're like, what? And they're going to go, here's the contract. You signed it. Same thing with cars, same thing with gadgets. I would say put all that stuff on hold. Even though you probably want a brand new iPhone for Christmas, that's a no. Tell auntie no. Tell people when you have figured out exactly what it is that you want or what you think or what you need, you will let them know, you will get back to them. Mail can go missing. That's something else that I would watch for, and issues with vehicles. Watch out for squabbles with siblings as well. Because Venus is involved, Venus is very strongly tied to this. This is about rethinking the way that you communicate with partners, people you do business with, clients. And if you're married or if you're in a committed relationship, there is a sense of you learning to totally change and transform at that conjunction to Pluto, how you're talking to these people, especially when it comes to making changes in your daily routine. So whether it's, hey, you know, can you stop by the post office, or can you go get my brakes checked, or let's sit down and read an email together before we make a decision. You have to include other people, and that's part of what's changing in terms of how you communicate and how you think, okay? Let's take a look at what the cards say for you, Scorpio. Hoping for a good one. Hoping for a good one for all the signs, but change it's inevitable with this transit. 6 of Wands. So coming out victorious, things panning out, stuff working, feeling like it actually ended up going okay. I feel like this is about being well received. So if you need to have an important conversation with somebody, maybe you take time over the retrograde to think it through and maybe get all your thoughts on paper and then finally sit down and have the chat. And then you feel like, wow, that went a lot better than I thought. But the success of the 6 of Wands stems from careful planning, right? Doing your research, really thinking about things. Sometimes it's about taking chances, and that where you take a risk in some situation, it actually pays off. But if you're looking to go on trips, travel, and do things, while there can be some bumps in the road, this is usually a positive card that's like saying, like, for the most part, it's still going to go very well. and you're being well received when it comes to what you're proposing to other people. Good job, Scorpio. Glad to hear that for you. Good luck. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, hopefully you're doing well. You have got a Mercury retrograde taking place in your natal second house of money, income, self-esteem, spending. My Saggies, watch your cash, okay? That's a big thing for you right now. So Mercury obviously rules your sixth house of other people, clients, partnerships, and it also rules your 10th house of work, business, and career. So let's say you're in the business of doing some kind of creative work, or you're self-employed. You can negotiate or name your price. When I'm feeling like this is a really good time to let people know, like, hey, come the turn of the new year, like my prices are going to go up. It's probably a good idea to start letting people know this now. Especially when it comes to your marketplace. So if you sell products, those might go up. You're looking at your costs, you're looking at what it costs to advertise, or what you're investing, time, emotions, whatever into this, and you're like, I need to charge more. Expenses are just going to be a thing, especially when it comes to business. It may be a time where you're able to sit down and renegotiate with Mercury retrograde what other people give you or what they bring to the table. So it can be if you're looking for a new business partner, if you're needing to sit down and talk to your partner also about money and spending and getting on track to reorganize some of your spending habits or receipts or documents pertaining to your business, getting prepared early for the tax year. That's the other way that I could look at this as well. But I feel like also you need to be asking yourself, if you're switching jobs or you're thinking about changing jobs, do you feel like it's a job you can take, and are you happy with the salary, and do you feel fulfilled, and is it reflecting your value, right? Because the second house is not just the money we bring in, but how we value ourselves, our self-esteem. So you're only going to get paid what you think you're worth. There may be a lot of back and forth conversations that you're having about a negotiation regarding a salary, or realistically what you could charge for your services. And you're maybe asking a partner, what do you think? You know, what would you pay for this? And you'll get some positive feedback. But this second house can also be things that we possess. So I feel like this can be a sense of like, somebody gives you something, you don't like it, you want to return it, you can't return it because you don't have a gift receipt. And you're like, what do I do with this thing? Do I sell it? It can also mean that, you know, people owe you money, clients owe you money, and you have to send out invoices, and you're like, I got to get paid. It's the end of the year. You know, I need to settle up on all my accounts. Talking to business partners about spending and resources, reevaluating, you know, salaries. That's pretty much the long and short of it. I would be very careful with big purchases right now. Cars, homes, boats, TVs, all that stuff, whatever, especially for your business, because to me it seems like business might slow down and you're going to be like, man, I just bought all of this new stuff for the office. Or, you know, I thought that we were going to need X, Y, and Z. And like now it's like slow. Like it might hit you pretty hard in January, and you might realize how challenging it is to be able to kind of recoup some of that. So put it on hold if you can. Reevaluate your budget. And that's personal spending as well. So going out to eat, buying things, cosmetics, all that stuff, that's the second house. But it's going to be about, I think, explaining to either your clients that you need to raise your prices, or to a romantic partner or a business partner why you're scaling back on your expenses, and you're just watching what you're spending, what you're eating. No major big budget purchases. Please, please, please trust me on this. Because Mercury rules business as well, it can be a situation where you thought work was solid, and then you realize work's not as solid as you thought, and they're cutting back hours at work, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm used to having a certain amount, and now I don't. I know this sounds scary, but just trust me on this. Reflect back to what was going on in early December, January, February of this last year. What were you thinking about? What were you budgeting for, right? Maybe you were saving money to expand your business, and now you're like, okay, we're feeling that pinch. We need to grow again. How do we do that? So it's not all doom and gloom. Just be careful with the money out. Let's see what the cards say for you, Sagittarius. The Hierophant. I actually kind of like this for you. I feel like it's interesting because this is connected to Taurus, which is a sign that in conjuncts you guys don't mesh very well. But I think that really what it's talking about is in the midst of the retrograde. You saw this a little bit actually in September. The Mercury retrograde in your 10th house trined Pluto, and it was also in a trine to your 6th house. So changing jobs, reorganizing things, that kind of stuff. Now it's about getting more so grounded and seeing like how you're producing. But I guess what I'm getting at is the retrograde is going to trine both the North Node and Uranus in the 6th house. So it's, can we afford help? Can I afford an assistant? Can we afford people to come in and, you know, pick up some of the work so I don't have to work as much? Is it worth it for me? Is it in the budget? And maybe you're getting some advice, or you're talking to a mentor, or you're talking to an accountant, or you're talking to a manager about, you know, what you can and cannot swing. Maybe you're going and talking to a therapist about, you know, finding a job that you really love, or finding something that you really value, so you feel like you're spending your time on something that you enjoy, right? That's what I think this is about. So there can be help and assistance that can come within the 6th house and some of those trines where it may be worth it to you to pay somebody to come in and help you get some of this stuff done, just so you feel like you can have a little bit of a break, because you may be feeling like you're stuck in this never-ending kind of loop of, I'm working just to be able to pay my expenses. And you're like, I got to figure out a way out of this. So I adjust how I'm spending, so that way I feel like I don't have to be working 24/7 to keep up with your lifestyle. That might be the change as well, okay? Good luck with you, Sag. Hopefully it goes well. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising. This is going to be very eventful for you. Pay attention. You've got a Mercury retrograde happening in your sign. So if you're a Cap rising, Mercury will be going retrograde in your natal 1st house. You're going to feel a little tongue-tied. It's about how you're organizing your thoughts, how you communicate with other people. It can also be about your health and your wellness, okay? This is another theme. Now, Mercury deals with the 9th house, which is your philosophy on life, your belief system, travel, education, teaching, publishing, law. And it also rules your 6th house of daily routine, or anything in regards to health, organization, coworkers, and your office space. So something about the bigger picture, travel, scheduling, timing, you know, education, your belief system, and also your schedule is being reevaluated. So for some of you guys, it's like, I can't travel, I'm sick. Unfortunately, that might happen. You guys might feel into the weather and you're having to delay getting on a plane and going, you know, over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house. The other way that I look at this is that your philosophy and your belief on life is changing. And you're realizing that you can lean into work that feels like it's your purpose. You can get some of the health results that you're hoping to achieve. Keep in mind, right? Mars is going retrograde here. So there's some topic about how much time you're spending doing things, and what are you doing for work, and are you working out, and how are you eating, and how are you feeling? So this is a time where you're like, okay, I want to see results. And I want to feel like the work that I'm doing on my health, or literally out in the world, is like, you know, making a change in me. Is it aligning with what my goals and my beliefs are about life? Watch for accidents, especially because Mercury's retrograde in your 1st. You can be a little bit more accident prone and clumsy at work, when you're on the go, when you're traveling, and it can put you in a position where, you know, either you or somebody else is liable, because Mars is going retrograde in your 6th and Mercury rules your 9th. I feel like this is more than anything about you being like, if I believe something, then I'm going to keep practicing it and reminding myself and make that become a part of my daily routine until I really start seeing the effects in my everyday life or in me. People will misunderstand you. That's part of what happens with Mercury retrograde in the 1st. So if you don't know, if you're not sure, if you don't have clarity, don't say anything. If you tell somebody you're going to be there at a certain time, you may not be there at a certain time. If you tell somebody you have time to complete a task, you may not. And I think a lot of this is about you realizing that if something's important, you'll make the time, but also that you can't just be all work and no play. If you're not taking care of your body, and if you're not taking care of your health, then where is it really leaving you anything left to be able to enjoy your life outside of work, right? To travel, to go to the gym, to do other things, whatever that may be. So big picture going on for you, Capricorn, about your health and also how you're spending your free time. Great time if you're wanting to break like a digital habit. If you're like, I don't want to be on Instagram, I'm only going to check my phone and spend 30 minutes on social media a day, or I'm taking a break, or I'm not going to use my phone when I go out to dinner or when I'm traveling. These things might also come up during the Mercury retrograde for you as well. Please don't cut your bangs. Don't make any big changes. Surgical procedures are a big no-no, and double and triple check all of your travel plans, please, because you could overlook something. The World, great card. Finally completing a cycle and learning to let something go. And personally, I feel like the 6th house is connected to like your own personal crisis, The Mercury retrograde conjunct Pluto is like, you know, maybe the things that you have looked at about yourself and you've been so harsh about, or so it's been difficult for you to release or let go, now may finally be the time, right? So it might be finally the time to kind of take it easy on yourself, let something go, learn to love yourself the way that you are and with all of your flaws, and not feeling like you need to turn it into a personal crisis. So there is some completion or something that's ending in terms of this long kind of Pluto theme that's been going on through your first house, okay? Finally completing. This can also be ending bad habits and patterns as well. Good luck, Capricorn. I'd love to hear from you guys and hear how this is impacting you throughout this next month. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Welcome to Mercury retrograde in your 12th house. You've got a lot to contemplate. You've got a lot to think about, Aquarius. You're getting ready to have Pluto go into your sign in this next year. You're getting ready to see Saturn leave your sign in these next couple of months. There is like a new and improved version of you that's getting ready to emerge into the world, right? Pretty interesting. So Mercury is going retrograde in your 12th house. And I would say, get that dream journal, put it next to your bed, take time to rest, recuperate, and meditate. Watch for signs and symbols that come through your dreams, okay? Mercury rules your natal 8th house, which is about death, sex, taxes. That's like the short and sweet version, but intimacy, you know, inheritances, taxes. It can be about things in regards to fear, right? Death, letting go. And the 5th house, which deals with children and things in regards to happiness, joy, creativity, dating, and your love life. So, you know, to see Mercury go retrograde in Capricorn in the 12th makes me feel like long hours, burning the candle at both ends, up all night, working in a dark room. It can also mean that your sleep patterns are off. It can mean that you're more anxious than usual, that you need to check in with a therapist or a reader or get some kind of guidance because you feel like there's something big that's coming. Something big is coming. I feel like this is about making some changes and recognizing, you know, when to like let go and let God, especially when it comes to things ending, when it comes to fears about money, when it comes to concerns that you might have about a romantic endeavor. It might mean also that if you're super worried about one of your children or one of your investments, that you're stressed out and you're thinking about it. But I have found that a Mercury retrograde in the 12th house is a wonderful time to be like, I cannot control this. And so many things will come up subconsciously for you in your dreams that are really, really helpful in terms of their symbolism to help you kind of break down and understand really what's happening and like what you need to know moving forward. It's a wonderful time to just take time to be out in nature, to be alone a little bit more too. So whether you want to go for a walk, you want to meditate, all of that stuff can be very helpful. You're going to be experiencing a lot of conjunctions to Pluto. So for some of you guys, it's the end of a phase of your career or your life or something that you're kind of letting go control over. And it's also in a trine to North Node Uranus in your 4th house. So to me, it seems about control over home, family dynamics, parent stuff, real estate stuff. And you're like, I gotta let this go. Like, you know, there's nothing I can do. But a retrograde in the 12th house can make you feel a little mental and you can feel a little stressed. And you'll be thinking a lot about the past or responsibility, and you kind of get like worked up about that. So I would say try to take it easy. Don't be so consumed about that. Don't be so worried about what's going on in the world. Try to get rest and try to let things go and kind of dissipate. On the flip side, the 12th house does deal also with retreat centers, foreign places, foreign exchange stuff with clients and things of that nature. It also deals with like hospitals and things in regards to healing centers. So, you know, some of you, touch wood, will be like, okay, you know, I got to get my kid into therapy. I got to get my uncle into rehab. You know, I got to schedule an appointment to go and get a knee surgery. Like these things can also come up because it's literally about something relating to health and detoxing and cleansing and healing or surgically kind of fixing. Would not recommend doing these procedures during the Mercury retrograde. That's just my 2 cents personally, especially if it's surgical or something that can be serious. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so if you have to do something and if it's life-saving, you may find yourself in a situation where you're in a hospital for yourself or for someone else. Hopefully not. But I think between a Mercury retrograde here, Pluto coming into your sign, you really got to pay attention to your body. It's very important that you're doing that right now, because there can be a sense of you getting signs or feelings that this might be coming, and you can actually keep some of this stuff from happening if you just listen to what your intuition is telling you, okay? Let's take a look and see what the cards say. This is for Aquarius. Oh, hi, more sassiness from the tarot, rest and recuperation. I'm a little neutral when it comes to this card, because I guess the positive is, yes, consciously saying, I can't do everything. I'm not Superman. I need to rest. Give me a few days. I'll get back to you. Or, you know, I need to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to bed at 6 p.m., whatever. The downside of this is the funeral card. This is a card that talks about endings. It does talk about death. It does talk about putting something to rest. So I'm hoping that it's putting your fears to rest, your worries to rest, and saying, you know, I don't know everything. I don't have control over everything. I got to let it go. But some of you guys will experience situations where you have to say goodbye to someone or something. That is very possible. And I would say just really watch with some of the trines that are taking place, because to me it suggests that it is about physical transitions that can happen. Okay, obviously touch wood, but take the rest. Don't make life happen that intentionally kind of creates some kind of chaotic situation where you're like, and I need to take 2 weeks off because I've gotten sick, right? Because that can be from stress too. Good luck, Aquarius. Now we have got my Pisces and Pisces rising. Mercury is going retrograde in your natal 11th house of goals, friends, parties, associations, professional networking opportunities, right? Mercury rules your 7th house of business partnerships, romantic partnerships as well, collaborations, one-on-one relationships, and your 4th house, which deals with home, family, the past, and connections that you have with relatives. I think a Mercury retrograde in general in the 11th house is like, you know, friends you haven't seen, you run into them at a party, you run into them around town, they call you up and they say, hey, we're having a New Year's get together, come through. Wonderful. I'm liking that these sextiles happen to your 1st house. So you might intuitively tap into who you're going to see or who you're going to hear from, or like what may play out in a social setting. But I also feel like this is a time where you might be reconnecting with friends and introducing them to a partner, right? A romantic partner, or vice versa. A partner might say, hey, come meet my friends. It can also be a time where there is a sense of partying and reconnecting also with family members that you haven't seen for a while. Now, if you're looking just to kind of keep this strictly to like office parties and things like that, you can, but there can be some miscommunications about whether or not you can bring a guest or whether or not you can bring family. Certainly friends might ask you about the state of a romantic relationship or who you're dating, or they might ask you about the past. The past can come knocking, whether it's a romantic partner, whether it is an old friend from the past. These people can show up. It can also be your family. You go to dinner and they're like, what happened to so-and-so? And you're like, we're not dating anymore. I don't want to talk about it. That can happen too. Reconnecting with people professionally is great, actually. So, you know, going out there and being like, you know, I really want to kind of expand my social horizons, meet people who are kind of active in their careers and loving what they're doing. I want to go and network with some of those people. There may be a sense of you asking a romantic partner, hey, take me with you to, you know, your business mixer, or one of your parents might say, hey, I've got somebody who's looking to, you know, hire somebody to kind of work with them on this project. I want to introduce you to them, you know, come to this dinner and meet them. So some kind of crossroads between partnerships and family, or just people from the past, and connecting with these people to help you kind of further your goals when it comes to what you're doing in terms of your professional life, but also socially. There can be some social expansion that can happen here. Really kind of rubbing elbows with some wealthier people, because Venus and Pluto are there, or people who are just very, very, very strongly connected, which can be very positive. Obviously, talking politics, religion, finances with some of these people can be a little dicey. So there can be a sense of just having to be more conservative with what you're talking about, kind of zipping up your lips a little bit, because this is going to be taking place in a more conservative sign. You might find yourself around older people as well. So it might kind of be like you being like, I don't know if I quite fit in here. Watch for miscommunications with friends. That can happen, especially, you know, there can be situations where some friends are going to want to be more than friends, or they're going to want to introduce you to somebody and you meet them and you're like, I am not into this person. And then that person won't leave you alone. Also talking to friends about your private life, right? Your home, your family goals, what's going on with your family. There can be some diceiness going on with who you're living with, your roommates, your spouse, and you end up going out with your friends and kind of telling them like, oh, I'm just like not happy. And you can have the wrong person who's like, I'm not happy too, you know, and kind of open up a can of worms, and it could become like this affair type scenario because Venus and Pluto and Mercury are conjunct. So be careful because misery loves company in the midst of some of these transits. The positive, though, is that I think it's going to allow you to connect with new people, people who are going to be well respected and connected in business. And it can also really help you improve either your friendships if you've had falling outs with people, or reintroduce partners to friends or vice versa. Especially if there's been some friction where like a romantic partner isn't crazy about your friends or vice versa. You can find a way in a social setting to bring these people around, and you can be like, okay, we're all going to kind of come together, be merry, enjoy the end of the year, be good to one another, and maybe find that we have a little bit more in common than we thought before. Okay. Let's take a look and see, Pisces, what this says for you in terms of the month ahead. But long story short, great time to reevaluate your goals. And if you've been hibernating and not socializing, get out there and have some fun and reconnect with some of your social group. King of Swords, there we go. We finally got a king in here. Connecting and communicating, right? Really owning what it is that you think and what it is that you have to say. Perhaps maybe this is about meeting like writers and people who are teachers and people who are just well-spoken and they're very direct and they're great with like negotiating and like talking business. I could see that with the retrograde in your 11th. Equally, you might reconnect with a Gemini or a Libra or an Aquarius. So somebody who's got some kind of air sign signature might come back in. They might reach out to you and say, hey, you know, do you need help with this? Do you want me to connect you to someone? Do you want me to represent you? Do you want me to introduce you to my attorney or my doctor or my brother, whatever, who's going to help make the connections for you? So it's important for you to be speaking up and communicating and sharing what's on your mind so you can allow other people to kind of help you get better connected and own your words. This might be a month where you're journaling, writing, speaking more than usual, and needing to really put a lot of power behind your thoughts and what it is that you have to say. So you get noticed, right, for what you're currently working on right now. Good luck. Well, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. It's been real long, but this is quite an interesting Mercury retrograde. Quite the send-off for Pluto. It's going to be a little topsy-turvy, but like I said, going back to the Sabian symbols, sometimes we need to retreat a little bit to think about what's important to us, what we want to devote ourselves to, and in the end, we'll find that even in the midst of some of the changes, it's to help us find our happiness. It's to help our hearts sing. Think of that little bird that was singing in its nest, and I'm hoping that you guys find that in this next month. I'm wishing you guys a happy new year. I know it's early, but definitely take note of all of this stuff. You can come back. This video is obviously going to be up here indefinitely, but a lot of this stuff will unfold until we get to really the better part of February. So come back during January as some of this stuff happens. You can put your 2 cents in the comments and let me know. Let me know how you're feeling with this. I would love to hear it. While you're watching all of this stuff, I'm in the midst of Mercury retrograde in my 4th and organizing my home and probably, hopefully, if everything goes correctly, we're going to be moving. So I'll be putting videos out. You guys will see that throughout the month. There might be a little bit of a change in the format, but you guys are going to still continue to keep seeing these videos anyway. I appreciate your support. Thank you guys so much. Be kind to Mercury. Light your orange candles. You can do that on Wednesdays. That's going to help you through this process. And you can also give offerings or put things out that are associated with Saturn. If you don't know what that means, and if you want more information about offerings and deities and things in terms of being able to work with the planetary energies, check out my astrological calendar for 2023. It is now on my website. It gives you all those recommendations for each month so you know how to work with the cosmos, and you also know the transits as they're coming, including all of the lunations and the eclipses. That's on sale on my website. My links are below. You can also book a personalized reading with me if you would like to. I'm now booking into February and March of 2023. Or generally, Saturdays on the channel, we have live readings. So while we're going through the retrograde, if it gets quite hairy there for you, you can come and catch me at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern. Saturday nights, we do live astrology or tarot, always posting that early on the community tab. So make sure you check that out if you'd like to get a reading. All right, guys, good luck with the Mercury retrograde, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.